Welcome to the Cross Counsel Podcast. We believe negative emotions shouldn't run your life. We invite you to take a deep dive into this challenging transformational journey that goes far beyond this podcast. Join Executive Director and expert facilitator Steve Freitag and me, Jon Crevillian, as we discuss how to deeply experience the love and truth of Jesus. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I am your host, Jon Crevillian, and I'm joined with my co-host, Steve Freitag today. How are you, Steve?
I'm good. I kind of feel a little bit lonely. It's just you and I today.
Yeah, we've been killing it with having guests lately, but back at it again. Just the boys today.
Right.
Speaking of our guests, big shout out to Terry Harris. She was a great guest. We loved having her on, and you guys can still get her book on Amazon. You can still check out her website. We'll include those links in the email for this one as well, for this episode of the podcast. But she's a good friend, and we loved having her on. And that was fun.
Yeah. So we've got some copies here in Madison too. So I think on Amazon, if you've got Prime, it's $12.99. We don't give change here. So if you want to up it to $13, if you come and want to pick it up here at the office, when you're available or when I'm available to do that. But yeah, sometimes the physical copy is really nice to have, and to, pass it along to friends is pretty awesome.
Exactly. And if I'm remembering right, she said that all proceeds are going to Mercy House. Is that right?
As far as I understand, yes.
Phenomenal. What a saint. We love Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How have you been, man? What's new?
What's new? Just enjoying how the world is just so stable and everything's great.
Oh, no major events happening or almost happening.
Yeah. Well, we've had some time to get away as a family, so that was pretty great. We went to Illinois. It is possible to have a good time in Illinois. So, but it has to still be very close to the border of Wisconsin or Iowa.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or Minnesota, possibly, right?
You got to be able to see a quick trip. You got to be close enough to know where home is.
We did. Okay, here's the last quick trip before we cross the border.
But it's into that uncivilized territory.
Yeah. It's probably been 25 years since Jenny and I have been to Galena. We went with my brother and his wife and my sister and her husband 25 years ago or so. And I think we stayed probably closer to town. We had no idea how beautiful it was driving around. And friends of ours actually just bought a house last year as a sort of a getaway house. And so we were able to connect with them and see how they're trying to make it their own, some of the things they're doing to their house. So that's pretty cool. And
sure.
Yeah. How about you? How have you been?
I've been all right. I've been pretty good. Went out to Amory with the lady recently, and that's always a fun time, going to see her folks and everything, and just driving through all the Midwest towns that are really small, and they all kind of look the same. And then they have one really weird restaurant or tavern right in the middle of it that doesn't make any sense. We passed one that had a garden with a wooden dragon in it. And I'm like, what? She was like, am I tired? What was that? And I'm like, I don't even know, babe. I'm like, let's get out of here. At least there's a quick trip nearby.
That's all that matters, right?
Yeah. But had a good week, had a good weekend. It was a good time hanging out with everyone. We got to see some friends, got to see her family, so not bad at all.
Cool. And I have some other side note cross counsel news. I've been asked to do a wedding ceremony for a couple in September.
Okay.
And it's sort of a cross counsel type wedding. So that's pretty amazing.
Ooh, what do you mean by that?
Well, I've known both of these people basically through them coming here, so I can't say who it is, but
right. Yeah.
It's pretty awesome, and that they would give me the honor to do the ceremony for them. So yeah,
that's great.
Yeah. They're actually a bit older than me. It's only the second time I think I actually participated in officiating Wes and Mary's wedding. And I was just thinking about that. Like, I think everybody else has been younger than me. Like, as I've gone throughout the years, it's kind of been that way. But
Sure.
yeah, I mean, we're all close in age, but yeah, it's going to be a blast to see these two people who are just amazed at how God has brought them together. Maybe
That's awesome.
You know, I don't know if anyone ever caught that from Mary, but she was kind of happy to find Wes, and vice versa. I think, I don't know if that ever bleeds through in any of the podcasts we've done. That's the appropriate response.
I mean, it bleeds through in like the meetings that we have like internally. They're like, you hang up. And they're like zooming from two computers in the same house. And we're all like,
right.
You're adorable. Y'all are adorable.
Right.
But yeah, that's awesome, man. Speaking of some like upcoming kind of cross council stuff here, and Wes and Mary, pretty soon they're going to be heading out to Malaysia here for a summit meeting with a bunch of like Christian leaders based out of like India and kind of that general area. And they're very excited about it. It sounds like it's going to be a really interesting time for sure. And for those of you who might be in the know, it sounds like God is moving a lot in India and kind of in the East in general. And so, you know, to be a part of that, what a blessing. What an awesome privilege. So, yeah.
Right. And Carol's a part of that as well.
Yeah. Shout out to Carol, lacrosse gang representing in India. But yeah, no, that's been fun. I love the India class. They're great. Or well, the first Malaysia inner healing team training class, as it were. They're great. They're such cheerful, kind students. So we love having them. And Mary will get to meet a few of them like in person. So that'll be a lot of fun, I think. Our classes are always so interesting, or just like the online offerings that we have for people to participate in. Like peer practice is another one where it's just people who have gone through the classes. They work with each other to like kind of perfect or to practice with their peers. Right. And get better at everything as far as like helping lead someone through the melt process. And the level of community that comes from these classes is really, really cool to see. And we're always excited to offer that. So
yeah, people really do open themselves up to one another.
Ooh, I like that.
Let your kids do dangerous things carefully. And that's stolen from somebody else. But I think that's a good way to live. Take risks, you know, don't be stupid with things, but yeah, put yourself out there. And I think the people who are in the peer practice, it goes to another level than just sitting in a class and sharing here and there. People have to actually address some of their wounds. So that's been good to see. So yeah, I love all the cross pollination. We actually go to a church that is very multicultural because of the university here. There are a lot of in the Indian culture that have found our church. So that's really cool to have some friends who were born in a different country and they still carry some of that culture with them, and to be invited to meals where you have an Indian meal with people who grew up there. So it's amazing. And we also have our friends Mike and Nancy, who are prayer warriors for Cross Council. They've been on the prayer team along with Mary Kiefer for 20 some years. There's some other people that are involved as well. And Mike and Nancy have made multiple trips to India. And so now there's this cross pollination as well, just preparing the team with some of their experiences and trying to bring some wisdom and understanding to ways to just better facilitate the healing of Jesus. So that's pretty awesome.
Very cool.
We recently sat down with a group of people who are fairly new to Cross Council. There was a common theme. While they found some results with traditional approaches, when they fully engaged in the melt process, there was simply no comparison. What God did in their hearts through the ministry of Cross Council is some of the most profound healing they've ever experienced. Help us share this healing with others. Become a monthly donor. We want to reach as many people with this message of hope as we possibly can. When you support Cross Council, you not only share the load of the ministry costs and the sessions, but you also help us provide content and that message of hope through the various platforms. We're so grateful to be doing this with you. Thanks for listening.
So before we get started, I just have gotten feedback from people. We try to do our best to put these podcasts out on a regular basis. And sometimes that means that we kind of cut some podcasts short, and we've gotten some feedback where there's some people that, 10 or 15 minutes in a podcast is plenty, but other people say, hey, some of those podcasts that you've made 2 or 3 episodes, boy, I'd listen to that for over an hour. And so we have to just be wise in how we use our time, but we also want to hear from you because there's a lot more going on than us just doing a podcast. If our ministry was doing a podcast, then yeah, we'd probably put much more content out there. But the thrust of our podcast, or the thing that drives it, is our experience ministering to people like you. So we don't share things from an ivory tower.
No.
It is from sitting with people in their pain as they walk through these very difficult places and own what they need to own, confess things that they maybe have never confessed, and gotten really real with some of the core beliefs that they've carried for their whole life. And just as a reinforcement, when we talk about core lies, they are things that can never be true. It's not some of these conclusions we come to, like my sister didn't care about me. I don't know if your sister didn't care about you. Could it be true that at one point your sister didn't care about you? Maybe that's true, but how does it feel to think that I'm garbage because my sister didn't care about me? And then I'm garbage, period, and how that's influenced your life. So there's a lot of things that we share that we want to make sure that we're clear on. And one of the things as well is, I think by doing this ministry for as long as we have, it helps fill some of the gaps in our perspective. I think we're going to touch on forgiveness a little bit, maybe later, whether it's later in this podcast or if we're going to just push that to next week. We want to talk about emotion and the difference between not living by our emotions and not living by lie-based emotions. So we wanted to make sure that we got a recording out, though, with what's happened in our country. And I know everybody has chimed in on their perspective of what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, where there was, for the first time since 1981, was it an assassination attempt on a president or a former president. And so I think that is worth pausing and not talking about the details of it, but talking about what is our response to be and what are we looking for in our leaders. So, John, you probably don't remember Reagan and the assassination attempt.
But I don't think I was around for that.
I
No.
don't think you were in 1981. Right.
No.
Right. But yeah, I remember being in 8th grade when I heard about that. So yeah, everybody by now knows many of the details. I'm sure more will emerge, but we're recording on Tuesday, July 16th. And so please keep that in perspective as you're probably listening to this. July 22nd maybe is when this will come out.
Yeah.
So that's why even talking about the details, we probably won't be able to cover that sufficiently, but what are we looking for from this? And there's all these cries for what, John? What have people said that should happen as far as the heart of our country is concerned?
Well, some people are saying, we were about 2 inches off from civil war there, which I think is a valid concern. Some people are saying, this has been the result of a very toxic and inflammatory rhetoric from one side of the aisle. And a lot of people on the other side of the aisle are saying, dang it, he missed. So there's a lot of strong feelings everywhere right now. Some people are saying, we really, really, really want cooler heads to prevail right now. And other people are saying, I'm just going to keep my powder dry. So people are kind of all over with all this.
Right.
So,
yeah, lower the temperature is one of the things that has been said multiple times, right? So before talking much about the actual event, well, we're not going to talk much about the details, but just there's a story I've been sitting on for a while, and I wanted to share that. Maybe some people have heard it, but just to back up a second, it seems like we tend to focus blame in life, let alone these situations, through the knothole, the limited and narrow knothole of our own pain. We ascribe blame or guilt through the lens of our brokenness. And we don't necessarily know that we're doing this. But if we don't pay attention to ourselves, there's going to be a cost to that. We're going to have a skewed perspective. So, and we have talked about it on the podcast that attention is one of the most expensive things in life. Pay attention. So that is a very focused thing. That's an intention or an aim that I think that we should have in life, is really pay attention to what's going on. I think there's plenty of warnings in Scripture. Be aware, be aware. And then the watchman, the watchtower, those kind of things. Look and look deeper beyond the surface. So, so just to pivot a little bit, and I think the story happened in December. I don't know if many people remember, but there's October. If we say October 7th, people know what happened on October 7th, and there were hostages taken. Israeli hostages were taken. So let me just read this, and I'll probably trip over the pronunciation of these names, but please forgive me in advance for that. Iris Hayam, her response to the tragic death of her son, Yotam, was mistakenly killed by IDF soldiers. So these Israeli soldiers, it's just a profound example of forgiveness and compassion. So Yotam, along with 2 other hostages, were killed on December 17th, 2023. So not that long ago, when these Israeli soldiers mistook them for terrorists in Gaza City's, I don't know how to pronounce this, Sayea neighborhood. So in the face of this tragedy, where they thought that, they were enemies, they were actually Israelis. In the face of this tragedy of her son being killed, she delivers this powerful message of love and understanding to the soldiers. Can you imagine being a soldier that killed your own countrymen? Right? So she records this message addressed to the soldiers in this battalion, and she delivers this on December 20th. So only 3 days later, Iris says, "I want to tell you that I love you very much. I hug you here from afar, and I know that what happened is not your fault at all. I ask you to take care of yourself." So that's from the Jewish Chronicle. So this extension of mercy and grace. And then she further expresses her support for the soldiers, emphasizing, the importance of their mission and their safety. They're trying to, do their duty. So she said, "You are doing the best thing in the world that can help us as the people of Israel. We all need you healthy. If you see a terrorist, don't think you killed a hostage on purpose. You need to protect yourself, because that's the only way you can protect me." Again, that's from the Jewish Chronicle. So she also extends this invitation to the soldiers who shot her son to visit her family. She said, "At the first opportunity, you are invited to come to us. We want to see you with our eyes, hug you, and tell you, as painful and sad as it is to say such a thing, that you probably did," get this, "the right thing in that moment." That's a powerful thing to say. She concludes by saying, "None of us are judging you, nor are we angry." Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
So, yeah, she just wanted to emphasize that it was absolutely not their fault. So I don't want to go too much more into the politics of that, but it extends this grace and this mercy. I don't know what the soldiers' response to that is. I didn't follow up on the story to see if they took her up on that offer, but I would hope that it did something to dislodge some of that guilt that they were carrying. But yeah, her message is a testament to her strength and capacity for forgiveness, even in the face of personal loss. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that level of that is a pretty intense thing to be able to forgive, to be able to look at soldiers who were meant to protect you and your family, and who messed up and executed your son, or your child rather.
Mhm.
And to say to them, I bear you no ill will, is like otherworldly levels of forgiveness.
Right. Yeah, it makes me and probably some of the listeners or viewers to think back to Corrie ten Boom, who I think even after giving a talk on forgiveness, she sees in the room one of the Nazi soldiers that was part of the persecution. Her sister didn't survive the camp, and that he came up to her just thinking that she was just another Jew that had been in one of the camps, not one of his camps. And that she mustered the strength finally to, as God was telling her, lift your hand, shake his hand, right? And just what happened in that moment. It's just such a powerful image of what can happen when we surrender our hearts and are willing to choose to do something that is not natural for us. And it's not just an intellectual exercise. We can have the intellectual aim. I think quite often we just say, yeah, I forgave. But genuine forgiveness comes from the heart. And so without getting into politics, I think it's really important for all of us to check our hearts and how we view what has recently happened in our country. And in light of that, I think understanding how forgiveness actually works. Number one of the big things that we talk about that people are surprised to hear if they haven't already heard it, is that the way that we look at biblical forgiveness is that it's not about the person. It's about what has been done. It's the debt. Forgiveness specifically technically means to cut off. And so we don't want to cut people off. We want God to forgive us of our sin, not forgive us. Now, if we say, God, forgive me, he doesn't say, well, okay, technically, then I'll cut you off if that's what you want. That's not how it works. But I think it's very, very, very helpful to have that correct target in mind that, okay, I'm going to separate the person from the act, and what they did was wrong, or what I think they did. When you think in the scope of like national scope, we won't really know the whole story. I think when we get to heaven, I don't think we'll even care about what happened, on a specific day here in the United States. We probably won't. But while we are here, while we occupy, as some people say, I think it's good to realize that we'll never actually know the full story of what really went on in any big situation like this. So it's about what happened. It's not about forgiving people, but it's, and to recognize that our real enemy isn't any human being. Our real enemy is Satan and the demonic realm. That is how we really need to look at this. There's then the world. How is the world our enemy? Like the systems of the world. And, of course that is a makeup of people and their philosophies, quite often under demonic influence. But just to be able to take a step back and ask God to help you see the bigger picture. Now, what forgiveness does not mean is that you just look the other way. I think I think you need to look evil straight on as best as you can understand it. As we pay attention, as we look at things, as we try to get a focused perspective and not through that narrow lens, and maybe even looking at different news sources and just comparing things. And one of the terms that I know you're aware of is memory hole.
Oh yeah.
Which there are some things that certain sides want us to forget, like it never happened, but there's something called electricity, and now we have recordings, and then there is footage and all those kind of things. But
yes.
So not to go too far down that, but we're not trying to look the other way, because when somebody personally has hurt us, and we deal with a lot of different abuse cases, it's never, there's these underlying currents that are inside of us that we might not even be aware of, where we're like, if we forgive that person, even if they look at it for what they did, it means that it's okay. That is one of the lies that we believe, is that if I forgive, it makes what they did okay. That's tremendously important. And so there is corruption in this world. There's corruption in this country. There's corruption on all sides. which again doesn't mean that I think we are called to be aware to whatever extent. I don't know how to quantify that, but there's corruption all over the place. Lord, help me see things through your eyes. I don't think you can say that Jesus looked the other way when it came to the government that was in power. I think he faced it head on. He just didn't let that distract him from his mission. So my guess is, and this is just me, but, and you can agree or disagree. I think that when Jesus comes again, I don't think he looks at the world and says, who's president of the United States? I'm just going to have him or her step to the side, and then I'll just run this world through that seat. I don't think that's how it's going to work.
Yeah. No, probably not.
We're taking a strong stand on that Jesus isn't coming to be the president of the U.S. and then the world.
I mean, first of all, the campaign would be incredible, but
I think it's a very short-lived campaign, but yeah.
Yeah. Like, all right, cool.
Here's his campaign. I'm here.
Yeah, I am 2030. Like, oh, word. Yeah, for sure. I'm voting. What am I going to not vote for Jesus? Like,
I don't think it even comes to a vote. I'm guessing.
Exactly. That depends on your views on free will, but we won't get into that.
How quick can you come up with a bumper sticker? Yeah, vote Jesus. I don't think that really, that's part of the deal here.
Exactly. But yeah, I think like, especially like since we got so close to like things really, 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 really escalating, I think having a cooler head is good at this point. But I do think that there needs to be some pushback on, like certain institutions that might have like put out rhetoric that would lead to this level of violence. And I think that it's more than okay to like call those people out and to be like, like this is, 8-10 years of this rhetoric has led to this. You need to chill. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's that old saying, speak truth to power.
Yes.
I think there's something to be said for that, but I think we also, need to be awake to, it seems to be, and maybe this touches too close to political, but I think what's happening is power is speaking to truth and saying that's not true because we have power and influence, and that's nothing new.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think quite often power tries to speak to truth and cover it up for their own means. So I think
I'm doing so good at not like going down the rabbit holes here.
Yes, I give you 5 stars for not going down the rabbit hole.
Sweating right now.
Which means we probably should wrap it up.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you guys for listening to us on that. We wanted to address that while it was still, fresh. And again, we don't know what the state of the world will be or if there's going to be any other ridiculous big developments come the time this drops, but we did want to address that because it's right now it's on everyone's mind and we wanted you guys to know our stance on it. So. This has been the Cross Council Podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, share with your friends, and look for us on social media. The world will become a much better place and Jesus will be seen in a much better light the more we are transformed by his truth and love. We'll see you next time, everybody.